On this bonus episode, how to strategically target media outlets to increase your chances to secure earned media. We'll hear from Dustin Siggins, founder of Proven Media Solutions. This is On Cam Ready. I'm Jamie Maglietta. Before we get started, I just wanted to let you know I have On Cam Ready looks on my Amazon storefront, On Cam Ready. This is one of the tops that I am now pushing out there as one of those great tops that really are perfect for your podcasting experiences and your on-camera opportunities from home. I also have a list of equipment if you're looking to set up your own podcasting studio inside your office or at home. And I am offering media training, so reach out to me at jamie@oncamready.com. Now let's turn to our guest and our topic for this episode, how to strategically attract earned media. As a producer, I would lean into social media and the news to locate guests. Those who stood out were usually weighing in on the topics I was interested in on social media. So if you are a professional looking to attract the media organically, I would start by weighing in either on LinkedIn or X or Instagram or TikTok on the stories that you see the news covering and you feel you would be an excellent expert on. So get going. You can do that on your own without a publicist. But today we are going to talk with Dustin, who is with a public relations firm. And he and I both have a shared background in journalism. So I always love to bring on guests who can relate to what it's like to pitch a guest and also receive pitches. So Dustin is with us. And you know what? Before we bring him on, I just wanted to share a little bit more about Dustin. He has a great blog on his website. Be sure to look in the description for a link to his website. He shares great topics on how to help you become more on-cam ready. And I love that about him. And, if you're curious and you're interested in being a guest on television and you just don't know how to navigate the media ecosystem, check out this podcast, On Cam Ready, on your podcasting platforms. And we also are on YouTube. All right. So as we're getting ready for this conversation, I'm going to just hop off screen real quick and get Dustin, and we'll be right here to have our conversation. Hey, Dustin, how are you? So glad you could be with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit more about what you do and what Proven Media is all about?
Sure. So Proven Media Solutions was founded in 2018 because I had spent 7 years as a freelancer and then doing part and full-time communications work as I transferred my skills from journalism to PR. And I realized I can actually do this thing called PR. And so started the firm because I saw a hole in the market where there seemed to be a lot of really good ideas from people that just weren't getting the attention they deserved.
Mm-hmm. And that is the thing. So many people are out there. There's so many great guests, and not many of them, have the right tips and tricks to get noticed. So what are some of the things that you've even written about that might help people navigating this media ecosystem that might help them get seen?
So you talked about being out there on social media, and I actually think there's another approach to get ahead of the game, right? Because you're basically talking about newsjacking, which is there's a big topic for a couple of days. Let's get out there on social media because journalists are trying to figure out who they're going to talk to. On the flip side, of course, journalists are also putting their requests on Twitter, X, quoted, HARO, help a reporter out, etc. But what we tell our clients,
yeah, go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt, but
connectively now, not HARO, excuse me. But I think a lot of people, those are good tools, but I feel like a lot of people can get ahead of the game by having that quality thought leadership that's more than just a quick blurb on social media, whether it's on video, whether it's in writing, following the 3 T's. We call it the 3 T's, the right topic from someone with the right title at the right time. And the title thing, by the way, and you know this, it doesn't have to be the CEO. It could be the janitor talking about company culture, or a customer, a lawyer wins a case, but it's the client who should be on camera, not the lawyer. So those are the things we tell our clients is, yes, use those tools, but you have to have the foundation in place first.
You have to have the expertise. And in order to really elevate, though, your expertise, you also do need to have an online footprint. I mean, as a television producer,
Mm-hmm.
if someone pitched me a guest and they didn't really have
Right.
any on air clips or any
Yep.
social media activity, it is a little hard, though, to get them booked, don't you think?
It's super hard, which is why we actually focus more on the written word, because getting op-eds placed is challenging, but not nearly as challenging as getting CNN or Fox or some of the national outlets.
Mm-hmm.
Even some of the podcasts and the non-traditional media, these people are hugely popular. They're getting in. How many emails did you used to get a day when you were
Mm-hmm.
at CNN? 300-400.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to break through that is so hard. So yes, having, whether it's B-roll clips, practice clips, 2-minute videos where you're just doing your thing and talking organically, whether it's energetic like I just did, or you're more the academic type, really slows it down. Whatever that voice is, getting out there and showing that you can handle yourself, even on a basic level, will elevate your credibility, especially to be on cam ready, on TV at any time.
And that's the thing, when we're talking about being on camera ready, you really do need to have the practice. It takes time. That's why there is media training out there to give people that opportunity. But, when I'm saying about weighing in on social, it does give them an additional opportunity to practice being on camera and how they might have the conversation or the points they might say, which could elevate them at the same time by weighing in and being in the media ecosystem. But I love what you're saying, about having them in print. I would always pull guests from articles. I always found that, like, when I would find a guest in an article and they had a strong title, to your point, the credentials, and they
Right.
sounded really good in the article, I'd give them a shot, have the guest booker
Right.
talk to them, right? But
Right.
when you're trying to prepare them for these interviews, are
Right.
there any tips that you have to help them stand out in those print articles or on those television
Sure.
interviews that can help? Because we are on LinkedIn at this moment, and this will be on YouTube and podcasting platforms. And I'm sure professionals listening are hoping you can give them with some actionable tips.
Sure. So I think there's really two. First, stay on 3 talking points and don't get off of them. And talking points doesn't mean duck, dodge, and hide or say things that are shallow. But if you have 3 key points you want to make, whether it's a speech, it's a written piece, it's a press release, and everyone knows the rule of 3. Stick to 3. What that does is allow you to make the same point in multiple different ways. No different than a sales strategy where you touch somebody on social, you touch them on a radio ad, and they see the roofing truck driving by. You touch people with the same point different ways, but it also means even the most inexperienced or nervous person can stay on track to what they're trying to say. Because if they start to get confused or lost or feel ambushed, wait, what were my 3 points? So that's the first thing. And then I forget the other one offhand, but really it's coming back to have 3 points that you want to come back to over and over and over again. And the other one is Beverly Hallberg in District Media Group taught me this during one of her media training sessions I took, which is block and bridging. Most interviews are not going to be an ambush. They might be tough questions, but you should be able to handle them if you're an expert in your field. But always be ready to block and bridge, which means instead of punching back if you hear a challenging question, judo throw it verbally. Deflect it and bring it right back around to the points that you want to make. So that way you don't come across as combative. You don't come across as confused. You're not repeating something negative if you're trying to respond in an interview to some bad news about your brand.
I mean, that's great advice. I think it's also obvious that many professionals need to realize that if you're booked on a show because you wrote this compelling book, that chances are you may not be on that interview actually talking about the book the whole time, right?
Yes.
They may mention your book in the setup, but chances
Yeah.
are you're not going to be spending 4 minutes talking about your book. But
That's right.
what I find interesting is when I talk to other television producers, they all say the same thing. When you're pitching me, I need to know what I'm going to get on television. So if we want to just focus for a little bit on television interviews and then focus on print, I think that could help our audience.
I
So,
agree.
what they say is they want to know what you're going to deliver, right? So
Yes.
they actually want to see 30-second videos or 2-minute videos that aren't edited of what you would say and how you would deliver. Again, that's why I think turn to social media to make those clips, but you can also get them from other interviews, right? But what are your pieces of advice on how to showcase someone for television?
Sure. So I actually am a big believer in, like, you might call it a media kit, where
Yeah.
you have the different pieces out there that you can send. And today it's easier than ever. When I
Mm-hmm.
was in school almost 20 years ago, don't tell anybody, almost 20 years ago, the PR professor said, showed us how to do a media kit. It was it was the booklet, and it had all this
Mm.
piece of information. Now you have email. Now you have Google, Drive, etc. When you're trying to pitch, your subject line is critical. It can only be 8 words, and it needs to get the point across while also being substantive. It needs to get somebody's attention while being substantive. It's really hard to do. That's your first challenge. That subject line should summarize that email, and the email should summarize the points you want to make, which should summarize the larger issue. So to your point about getting a book, all these producers are getting dozens of books every day. They have no chance to read them. They skim them, I'm sure. I worked briefly for a radio producer or for a radio show. You skim them, you look at the author, you look at the publisher. Okay, most of these are going in the pile, no different than a resume when you get 100 of them for a job. So when you send, you have to know who you're pitching. Are you pitching the host or the producer? What is the tone they typically like? What are the topics they cover? How do they cover them? Are they forward-looking? Are they backward-looking? Are they more aggressive and punchy? Are they more academic? You have to have all these considerations when you send that pitch. And it shouldn't be more than, say, maybe 8 sentences. And then you can have your links at the bottom. But you have to have a compelling subject line, compelling information that proves that you're worth reading an entire email for. And then, links, I would say, to some long form stuff to show that you're a thoughtful person about what you're talking about, and that shorter video content, that is what should be on social, which, as you said, but again, it all has to link back to your more substantive content. Otherwise, you're just someone doing a hot take.
And to that point, if you are someone who maybe is a doctor, right? But
sure,
you want to start weighing in on stories in the news, and the stories are more focused on, say, surgery's gone bad, and you're not a surgeon, you're not the right expert. So don't pitch yourself on that topic.
That's exactly right. And it's really, really hard. And I was just talking to a business group yesterday, another Zoom presentation, and the conversation, someone actually said, what if I want to comment on stuff that's not within my brand focus? And I said, make it rare if ever, because you don't want to get distracted. You don't want to go down this path that maybe you have a slight interest in, but it's not going to achieve your end goal, whether that's revenue, teaching people, boosting your ego by getting on media, whatever your goals are. You have to stay focused on what you want to say.
You do, but you know what I've been seeing more and more of is experts who are also, I don't want to say are also, they're more like experts that are diversifying their options online. So I'll see, and I won't give her name, but I'm a fan of hers, but she'll be a legal expert and then offering lifestyle advice in magazine articles. And I'm like, wow, she's really been able to pivot by showing people, hey, I'm smart and I can weigh in on these legal stories, but because I've had to run my own business, I also have great advice for you over here if you want it. And I'm always impressed by how she is able to kind of navigate those silos, which at least I always saw them as silos. So I think there is opportunity in some cases.
There is. Are you familiar with Jim Collins' Good to Great? It's a 2001 book on business. It was phenomenal. And one of the things he talks about is the flywheel, where you get things moving so well for your brand, for your organization. And then you can create a spin-off. Amazon was books. Now they're in groceries and movies and everything else, because Amazon isn't a tech company. They're a supply chain company, and everything transfers over. I got into USA Today last year talking about education. I'm not an education expert. It was kind of off brand. Yeah. But I also interviewed Mark Cuban for the article by email, and interviewed a couple of other business people and an education expert. So it did showcase my ability to write well, creatively, get some big names, and into a big outlet. In the case of the woman you're talking about, I suspect she actually has brand consistency, because she's probably not talking about the details of being in court. She may be talking about building a legal business, which is, the fundamentals of business are the same no matter what you're doing.
Yes. And, while you're talking about this, I wanted to just pull up one of the stats that I saw on your website about
Oh dear.
you. And, guys, we're talking to Dustin Siggins. I'm saying your last name right, Dustin?
Correct.
And
At least you're not saying Higgins. You're actually pronouncing the
and Siggins. But Dustin has written for multiple national media outlets, including the Washington Post, Forbes, and USA Today. And I just think that, because he has had the experience of writing for those publications, he also knows how to really pitch them, right? So why don't we take this as a moment to switch gears and focus on print? You and I
Sure.
had this great conversation about how you can strategically target media and that niching down, right? Like figuring out who are the media outlets within your niche or your, industry, and starting there so that you can really focus on industry publications and get yourself known that way first. I mean, what are your did I get you right? Yeah.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, getting into the Wall Street Journal or CNBC or Hollywood Reporter, the top tier outlets it's very credible, and everybody knows that. Getting on CNN, again, hundreds and hundreds of emails. But if you're in the dental space, or you're in the pet space, or you're in the your financial advisor, sure, Wall Street Journal, Forbes. But what if you got into investment news, which is one of the top two trade outlets? That might be the number I made up. Two numbers I made up a couple years back. Probably 80% is trustworthy and 10% the difficulty. And so we often talk to our clients about trying to get into those trade outlets, or if you're geography based, getting into regional and local press, because not only are you reaching your core target audience better, you're also giving yourself that sort of downstream credibility on your e-newsletter, your social, all the things we've been referencing here. Before you even have a huge brand, you can really accelerate that brand credibility pretty quickly. The other thing it does is it gives you that foundation to get that top tier press opportunity. Back to your point about having the B-roll, etc. If you're looking somebody up on Google as a producer and you see, wow, they've been in these 3 industry trade pubs, they've been in, 2 city-based business journals, and they have 3 interviews with podcasters, they're really credible. That's only 8 placements I just made up off the top of my head, and you're nodding your head, which means I got it right. And so 8 quality placements over the period of 6 months, 4 months, might be all you need with the right topic, time, and title to get into those top tier outlets.
And, he keeps mentioning the 3 T's, and that is one of the articles on his website. As I mentioned, he does have a great blog. Again, the link to Proven Media Solutions is down below, so you can get in touch with Dustin. You can also reach out to me. I'm also on Instagram offering tips on how you can leverage your social media. So, there's ways that you can attract the press. There's ways that you can get noticed. You may not be able to afford a publicist right away, and you may be looking to just get yourself out there, starting here. Right now, if you're listening on a podcasting platform or YouTube, we are doing this live on LinkedIn first. So, if you're listening on LinkedIn, this is a great platform to be a thought leader if you want to start getting recognized within your niche, right? I mean, Dustin, do you ever suggest that they start trying to write what they might want to write for an article on LinkedIn, or how do you navigate social media with your clients?
Sure. So to be clear, we are not social media experts. We don't present ourselves that way.
Yeah.
We do communicate about it with our clients, but we don't necessarily offer a strategic, long-term plan to it.
Of course.
I tend to think one of two extremes. Use social media to test the market in the less risky way, because it's less time. You might have just some quick thoughts. That's a good way to test the market. See what people's engagement is compared to your normal engagement, etc.
Yeah, completely agree.
But on the flip side, I think it's better to create bigger content, let's say a white paper, a case study, or a data research, publish that. Then that becomes your e-newsletter. It becomes 2 blog posts. It becomes an opinion piece, and it becomes the topic for 3 interviews. And it becomes 30, 10, 40, whatever, social media posts as well, all driving back to that case study, which is really the foundation of that message. And so I do tend to think that social media is a little overrated insofar as people using it as a primary tool, because I think you need to have those foundational components in place first. Everything from that big, set of data that big case study, etc., and years of experience. The best thought leaders on LinkedIn are citing experiences. In the case of Josh Braun, who's a sales expert, cold sales expert, he'll actually get pictured like a waitress. And he goes, this person was a great salesperson. Let me tell you the conversation we had, and here's why it's relevant. And so there's a lot of experience being pulled from there, even if there isn't you can't link to experience, but you can share it on LinkedIn in a way that's very credible.
And, that really brings up the previous conversation that I had here on LinkedIn. And also we have a podcast and a YouTube episode with Chrissy Chin. She was talking about automation and how to make a passive income. But the whole point that we were bringing up was how to have digital products to elevate your expertise, yes. Right? So if you're someone who's listening and you're like, well, I don't have a book and I don't have anything to offer, like you could start investing in digital products. Right now I'm working on a course. I would love to write a book, but if only I have time, right? It's hard to do it all. We get it.
I understand.
We get it.
Okay, if I could dive in on that for a moment, I think you raised a really good point. My business partner is a process person. And when I started doing business writing, I was published 3,000 times in politics. And writing in business was a totally different topic. It was totally different on every level, except, I was using a computer, there were words involved. And I was really concerned about coming up with new ideas. So I did a couple of interviews with people, but I was more sharing their thought leadership rather than my own. And my business partner said, Dustin, just as you're going through the day, to start taking mental notes. And so what I did was develop an informal process of the end of the day, end of the week, kind of writing down things that occurred to me. And then the second part of that process is take those ideas and quickly structure them. The structure I suggest to people is when you have an idea, write it down as a headline and your 3 main supporting points, and then 3 supporting points for each supporting point. 10 words is about the average sentence length. You just wrote 10 times 13 lines, 10 words times 13 lines, 130 words. You just wrote a fifth of your op-ed, a tenth of your essay, and 5% of your white paper, and it was the hardest 5%. Now you have the structure in place. Now you can come back a week later when things die down, or a month later. You have enough of a structure, you're going to remember what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
I do think that having that digital credibility, again, whether it's pushing out through, if you have a lot of money and you're trying to push it out through SEO, but you don't have any content, then you brought people to your website, but you're not offering them anything.
Yeah.
So I do think that coming through your day and taking a process, whether it's daily or weekly, taking half an hour and writing down the 10 best ideas, you're going to cross out 8 of them. Then those 2 that are left, take the 10 minutes to really put that structure together of a headline, 3 subheads, and then 3 subheads per subhead.
And, a lot of what he's saying, guys, again, is great, especially if you can pitch the press. And earlier he had mentioned HARO, and I just want to make sure that some people listening know what that is.
Sure.
It's help a journalist, help a reporter out. And there's a website. They also use hashtags. You can find them on Twitter. You can also search the hashtag journo request.
No, don't tell anybody that. That's my secret sauce.
Well, you can go there, guys, and so you can try to find these things, okay? HARO is like one of those things that will come into your email box, but then you're pitching yourself, right? So again, if you're someone who just can't really afford someone as amazing as Dustin and you're trying to do this, there's other ways, right? Dustin, do you mind?
Free.
Yeah, go ahead. What do you want to weigh in on?
No, just that they're free.
What was the third one?
Owned by Cision. You have free options there. So journal requests, often they're British-based, probably half are from Britain, I've noticed. But literally you're getting across the Atlantic Ocean there. Quoted, Quoted, is free. Right. I think 2 pitches a month. Connectively, which is the new name for HARO, owned by Cision. You go in there and there's all these opportunities, and they're all free to a certain degree. And so, you can easily get that practice that's a low risk about developing a pitch, and send 20 out and see who responds to you and how they respond.
Yeah. And then the other thing that Dustin mentioned was just, if you have a list of topics and ideas, maybe 2 of those are an op-ed, maybe the rest are you weighing in on social media to at least get practice or to put yourself out there on topics that you really want to talk about. You just have to start strategizing ways, because as we're talking and we're having this conversation, if you notice, there's not really that much variety on television. So if you really want to start getting yourself out there, you really need to start getting yourself prepared and prepped and put the effort and the money in to get noticed, because you do need that help, right? You do need that networking and that communication going on for you and advocating for you to get those big breaks. But as I keep saying, is there are ways that you can go about it to try to do it yourself, right? Without formal pitching. So I am so glad that we could have this conversation. Dustin, I would love it if you kind of tick through like quick 3 tips that you've already mentioned, but so I could cut it into a soundbite. And then just any last minute tips and pieces of advice that you want to share for people.
So you're going to hear a lot of PR firms talk about their relationships. And that's great. They're going to talk about things like Quoted and Muck Rack and Cision and Meltwater. Those are good, but at the core is the 3 T's. To getting in the press, it's the right topic from someone with the right title at the right time. Those are the 3 T's. Second, what are you trying to say? What is the foundational question that you're answering? Because if you think it's important after years or decades in your space, it probably is. So what are you trying to say? What key question are you trying to answer? And how are you answering it? Are you academic? Are you aggressive? Do you prefer short? Do you prefer long? What's your voice? And then lastly, where should that voice be heard? If I was someone who, I'm always nervous on camera. If I was someone who couldn't function on camera, we wouldn't be doing this interview. I'd stick to the written word. If I'm somebody who gets easily bored of doing essays, either I have to outsource it or avoid essays in the first place. So 3 T's, answer a foundational question, understand how you want to answer it, and then find the right platforms to answer it.
I love that. And Dustin, why don't you just let people know how they can get in touch with you?
Sure. Yeah. I'm on LinkedIn, Dustin like Dustin Hoffman, Siggins, S and Sam, IGGINS, provenmediasolutions.net or .com. We bought both. Shoot me an email, dustin@provenmediasolutions.net. I'd love to have a conversation. One of the ways we get to know people who are interested in our services is co-authoring. I would love to get myself into one of your trade outlets based on your expertise in your industry and the big name that you have, because they don't care about a comms guy, but also my ability to help you present that message in a new way.
Yeah. And guys, just remember On Cam Ready is here to help you navigate this media ecospace. And, we're bringing on guests like Dustin to just help you start putting yourself out there as a thought leader, and also start pitching yourself to the press. I mean, we always needed guests, and there's always someone looking for something, right? Yes. So I really hope that you guys check out our links down below. Again, you can connect with Dustin through one of the links. You can listen to this on a podcasting platform and YouTube. And if you are on LinkedIn, you can check out the video. I will be hosting more lives. Before I go, let me just show you guys, Dustin and I keep talking about being on cam ready. And if you are someone who is like interested in being on cam from home or from your office, you really should be investing in equipment. They can be fairly inexpensive. I'm going to take my camera down and I'm going to show you real quick. So it's going to get messy. All right. If you're watching on YouTube.
Really good
but
idea.
I think this is important. So guys, real quick, Dustin, this, give me a minute, but I am looking at my camera. Okay. So my camera is up on a tripod. So I am taking it off. So this is what's happening here, guys. You're on my tripod and I can move and zoom the lens on my camera because it's a webcam. All right, guys.
Right.
This mic is very inexpensive, but you want to have like a USB mic or a DXLR and get an arm for your. I'm in my room. Like this is just like a guest room.
I'm
unplug my camera. But look,
normally I have a little $400 graphic
this
I put together.
Light.
Didn't
Dustin,
work.
Yeah, what do you got going?
But look, there's a window. There's all the stuff I don't want you to see. It really is not that expensive today. For $300-400, you can really have a very professional looking setup.
Exactly.
And it's not like you are Jamie who needs to do it every day. You're only doing it once.
And Dustin, you also have like backgrounds that you can use. Like there's things that you can do, guys, that can really dress up your on-camera experience when you do have those on-camera moments. So don't be discouraged by the on-camera part. Like if you want to be on TV, take that step and make sure that you have the equipment so that when your opportunity comes, you're not panicking. Really, that's what it comes down to.
Make sure you have the right clothes. I did a Zoom presentation yesterday, and I usually have a dark blue background on me in the graphic, and I wore a black coat. And the organizer said, "No, get out," because I thought it looked fine, but I have the aesthetic sense of a colorblind rock. So I actually wore this yesterday for the interview, and it went much better.
I think it's popping. And here's the thing, guys, you want to, if we're talking about colors here, solid colors, bright colors for women always. And right now,
a little bit of
what did you do, Dustin?
I took a risk. I thought you might get mad at me.
I love it.
I went solid otherwise, because otherwise it can be very distracting with the light to you and to the interviewer and to your audience. And you want to be as polished as possible without being, C3PO style stiff.
So guys, I hope you gained so much value from this conversation. And again, be sure to find Dustin and myself. We're on LinkedIn. Follow us. Reach out if you have questions. And if you're on YouTube or listening on a podcasting platform, be sure to follow this podcast, this conversation. And thank you for listening to this bonus episode. And I'll see you guys online. Bye.
Take care, folks.